The first light of dawn spread over the sleepy town of Marigold Valley, painting the red brick buildings in hues of soft amber. The narrow streets, lined with old lamp posts and trees just beginning to change with the early signs of autumn, remained mostly quiet, save for the occasional passing pickup truck and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Nestled on the corner of Maple Street and Briar Lane stood the Steam Bean Café, a cozy, weathered building that had become a staple in the community over the last 2 decades. Inside, the warm aroma of roasted beans and vanilla lingered in the air, weaving comfort through every corner of the small coffee shop. Behind the counter, Daniel Hayes moved with practiced rhythm. At 37, he was the kind of man who wore the scars of life on his sleeve, some visible, like the faint burn on his forearm from a long-forgotten kitchen mishap, and others buried deeper, like the quiet sadness that crept into his eyes when no one was watching. He had the build of a man who once dreamed big and the patience of a father who had learned that life rarely followed the script you expected. His short dark hair was beginning to gray at the temples, and his flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, revealed strong forearms dusted in flour and espresso grounds. Despite the fatigue in his bones, he greeted each customer with a gentle smile that made even the grumpiest morning commuter soften. Daniel had been working at the Steam Bean for 5 years now, ever since his world turned upside down. His wife, Emily, had passed unexpectedly from an undiagnosed heart condition. Left alone with their 3-year-old daughter, Ellie, and no college degree to his name, he had taken the first job he could find. At first, it was meant to be temporary. But days turned into months, and months into years, until serving coffee became more than a job, it became a lifeline. A rhythm. A way to keep breathing. As the sun pushed higher in the sky, the shop filled gradually. The usual crowd arrived like clockwork. Mr. Thompson, the retired history teacher who always asked for just hot water and a slice of lemon, Dana, the pregnant yoga instructor with her green matcha latte and her tote bag of baby books, and the high school art students who took over the back table, sketching between sips of their fraps. It was familiar, predictable, and comforting. That is, until she walked in. Daniel noticed her immediately, not because she made a scene, quite the opposite. She was quiet, deliberate, and almost too polished for a town like Marigold Valley. Tall, with piercing gray eyes and dark auburn hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck, she wore a simple wool coat over tailored jeans and boots that screamed money without shouting it. Her posture was perfect, her movements unhurried, and her gaze, when it swept the room, was the kind that didn't miss much. She stood in line for less than a minute before reaching the front, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," Daniel greeted, pen poised over the order pad. "What can I get started for you?" She hesitated, then said, "Large black coffee. No sugar. No cream." Her voice was smooth, calm, professional. She paid in cash, exact change, and when Daniel thanked her and slid the receipt across the counter, their eyes met for the briefest moment. "You visiting?" he asked casually, as he began preparing the brew. "Something like that," she said vaguely, eyes flicking to the chalkboard menu as if she were already distracted. Her name on the receipt read, Kate Monroe, though Daniel had a hunch it wasn't her real one. He handed over the coffee in a plain ceramic mug, one of the perks of dining in, and watched as she chose a table near the window, back to the wall, eyes on the room. Most newcomers chose the sunny spots near the bookshelf or the community board. Not her. She wanted visibility. Control. Daniel had seen that kind of alertness before, not in the town, but in movies or among military veterans who visited the café on holidays. Kate Monroe didn't stir from her seat. She sipped the coffee, pulled out a notebook, and began scribbling notes as if conducting an audit on the entire town. Daniel kept an eye on her, a quiet alarm in the back of his mind growing louder. Something about her presence stirred his instincts. At 10:42 a.m., she ordered a second coffee. At 11:03 a.m., she asked for directions to the Marigold Valley Community Center. At 11:37 a.m., she stepped out for a phone call, walking precisely 40 feet from the café, where Daniel knew cell reception was clearest. He wasn't paranoid. He was observant. Years of working with people had taught him how to spot patterns. And something about this woman didn't align with her surroundings. When she returned to pay for a third coffee and a sandwich to go, Daniel made a decision. He slipped a small folded note beneath the lid of her cup before gently setting it on the counter. He made no gesture, no nod, no smile. Just a simple, "Have a nice day." She took the cup without hesitation and walked out, boots clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. Daniel exhaled and leaned against the counter. He had just crossed a line he never thought he would. 20 minutes later, Kate sat on a bench just outside the community center, the to-go coffee untouched beside her. She waited until she was certain no one was watching, then peeled back the lid and carefully unfolded the note tucked beneath the inner rim. The message, written in sharp, clean script, was brief. "If you're really who I think you are, meet me at the park bench behind Bellevue Library at 6:30 p.m. Come alone. D." Her heart quickened slightly, not with fear, but with surprise. So, she had been spotted. She'd done this kind of undercover assessment a dozen times in different cities. But never had someone in a dusty small-town café seen through her facade. She had done everything right. Dressed down. Changed her name. Rented an unassuming car. Why had he noticed? She read the note again. Then she smiled. Daniel sat on the bench in the fading light, hands clasped loosely between his knees. The Bellevue Library had closed at 5, and the park behind it was quiet, save for the distant chirping of birds and the occasional rustle of leaves. He wasn't nervous, not yet, but he was keenly aware of the risk he was taking. For all he knew, she could be corporate security or a government official. She could accuse him of harassment or worse. At precisely 6:30, footsteps approached from behind. Daniel didn't turn around. Instead, he waited until the woman, Kate, or whatever her name was, sat beside him. She was quiet for a moment. "You left a note in my coffee," she said, more amused than angry. "I did." She looked at him sideways. "You think I'm someone important?" "I think you're not just another tourist," Daniel said. "I think you came here for answers. And I think you already suspect something's wrong." Her expression didn't change, but the silence that followed was telling. He continued, "MorganTech sent people here last year. They pledged funds to fix up the community center, build a new youth wing, and expand the tech literacy program. There was a whole press release about it. Got the town excited. They even held a ribbon-cutting ceremony in spring. But the truth is, nothing's changed. The center looks nice on the outside, but the inside? It's the same broken air conditioning, same peeling walls, same handful of volunteers running things on scraps." Kate's eyes narrowed slightly. "You've seen the paperwork?" "I've seen enough. My daughter's in that after-school program. And I've talked to the people who were promised jobs and never got them. I've seen vendors who never got paid. The money came through, but it didn't end up where it was supposed to." He finally turned to face her. "If you really are who I think you are, Kate Morgan, CEO of MorganTech, you're being lied to. And your name's being used to cover it up." The air between them shifted. For a few moments, the sounds of the world fell away, and only the weight of her silence remained. Then she exhaled slowly. "Why did you come to me?" Daniel smiled, a little sad. "Because when someone like you walks into a small-town cafe and drinks 3 cups of black coffee in 2 hours without making a single phone call until you're out of earshot, you're either a journalist or someone trying not to be noticed. And I figured if you cared enough to come all the way here alone, you might care enough to hear the truth." Kate looked at him, her guarded expression softening slightly. "I came to investigate the integrity of our charitable programs," she admitted. "I had a hunch there was corruption, but it's been hard to find anyone willing to speak plainly. You just found one, Daniel said. They sat in silence again, the last of the sunlight fading into dusk. Kate finally stood. You have documents? Names? Proof? I do. Then meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. At the café. Daniel nodded. Kate began to walk away, then paused. You're a barista, she said over her shoulder. Why risk it? He looked up at her, jaw set. Because I'm also a father.